Now it's time for the Huddle, your complete look at all things Eastern Football League.
Studio tonight for our Unsung Hero segment. Usually we head out to a club, and this week we'll envisage the Ringwood Football Club, but joining us in the studio is a man who's synonymous down at the Redbacks down at Jubilee Park. He's been down there for 40 years, would you believe it? He played all his junior and senior football down there. He never won a flag though, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. He's been treasurer before for a couple of years. He's been on the committee. He's been the secretary of the club for the last 7 years. He's junior coach down at the football club, or has been before, and his son's played down there as well. Ringwood really runs through his blood. It's a very good evening to Brett Cairns. G'day, Brett.
G'day, Ben and gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
Mate, it's a pleasure to have you come in here in the studio. I heard that you're a little bit comfortable with the surroundings of the Croydon studios, a little bit of a EFL, Radio Eastern celebrity of late. But, mate, the Ringwood Football Club, 40 years, it's a very long time, and you don't look a day over 42, so you must have gone down there pretty young. What took you down there all those years ago down to Jubilee Park?
Started way back in 1973, and we lived in Croydon, but from memory, my brothers went to Ringwood Tech, and a couple of the boys from Ringwood Tech were mates with my brothers, played at Ringwood. And one night I went down and went to training. And I remember the first night I hated it because I didn't know anyone. I was a pretty shy sort of kid. I was only about 11 or 12 years of age, and didn't enjoy it. And my mum had to force me to go back down. And I think from memory, the next one went down with a public holiday, and there weren't so many kids there at training, so it wasn't as imposing or as the first night. And got to know a few of the guys, and it's grown from there.
What was the facilities like down there all those years ago? Because people who know the Eastern Football League and over the last decade or over the last 2 decades know that Jubilee Park Ringwood is one of the premier grounds in the Eastern Football League. I'd be fascinated to know if it was still in that higher echelon of grounds back in the day.
Yeah, nothing's much changed over the years. Like, we've had an upgrade to the pavilion and that sort of stuff. But
so that was standing back then?
Yeah, that was there. That had its 50th anniversary. Actually, I think it's coming up for 50 years next year, from memory. So that was there, and it's basically, the grandstand's still the same as it was back in those days. It's just the social rooms and change rooms underneath that have changed. But the ground itself, was big back in those days, and it's still big now. Slightly better condition. In the old days, it used to chop up pretty badly during the winter, and it'd just be one big black sea of mud. But obviously now it's a lot better and one of the better grounds.
You must be pretty proud that the club's been able to host finals down there for a number of years.
Yeah, look, we love hosting finals, and we love doing a good job, and I think we do a good job, and I think it's a great venue. It's got all bases covered. People say it lacks atmosphere, which it probably does a little bit, but as I
disagree with that, because if you're up in the grandstand, the atmosphere is absolutely fantastic, especially in finals. And I tell you what, if you go down and get a burger from the gang down there, it's always a pretty good atmosphere amongst you lot down there.
Yeah, well, I think a couple of years ago when we hosted the Division 1 elimination and first semis, we had a couple of cracking games and big crowds, and the atmosphere then, because most people congregate on the grandstand side, so the atmosphere there was I think was pretty good and fantastic to hear.
What type of player was your good self? I know you played junior football and senior football. What did you find a total number of games that you ended up playing, and a bit of about yourself as a player?
Never done an exact total, but combined seniors and juniors was about 360, and then I happened to play 9 years of veterans footy.
Gosh.
After I retired, had a year or two off, and then they formed a veteran side. So, it's over 400 games.
It must have been fun playing vets.
Look, those 9 years was the enjoyable 9 years of footy we had, because it was just so relaxed, and no one was getting paid. There was no real sort of... I mean, you still had that competitive edge and wanted to win, but it was so more relaxed, and training was very social, and have a beer and a pizza after training, and then after the game, pretty much like it is now, you sort of grow a bit more respect for the players that you used to play against, and you're not so competitive. And the 9 years of vets was fantastic, actually.
Brett, I was talking to Mark Freeman. I'd let Freezer know, of course, the commercial manager of the EFL, that you were coming into the studio tonight. And he goes, I can remember Brett being there since almost I was born. Now, if you've been at the Ringwood Footy Club for 40 years this year, and you don't look too much older, I would have thought, than 40 as well. How long? So, what age did you start getting to the Ringwood Footy Club, getting down there?
I would have been, it was 1973, so it would have been 12 years of age, 11 years of age. So I started in under 13, so yeah.
Are you renting at Jubilee Park or something like? Do you live there at the moment, Brett?
I feel like I do.
Well, and you've been there for 40 years, and that's, we see a lot of people that are there for 20 years or 15 years and have been great club stalwarts and are really celebrated. But 40 years, can you put into words why you've stuck around and what the club means to you to stick around for so long?
Yeah, I don't know. I just love playing footy. So I played till I was about 32, I think it was, when I finished up, and then had a year or two off because at that time started a young family, and then, as I say, the veterans came along and had another. That I thought when I finished that would be it. I'd just go down and spectate and that sort of stuff. But the veterans prolonged it for another 9 years, and when that sort of finished, I was back involved with the club, and one thing led to another, and became secretary, and then the boys started down there, so that keeps me going now, and they're progressing well, and I'll sort of be happy when they progress to seniors, and I'll sort of pull the pin on a lot of things I do and just stand on the hill and enjoy a beer and watch them and their mates that I've coached and progress through the ranks, watch them. So that sort of keeps me going.
You mentioned the off-field side of things, and of course you had a long and distinguished playing career on the field, but off the field as well. You mentioned you had a little bit of time off, but you come back off the field. What was your motivation? You said you love playing footy, but also you must love the club as well to really get involved so heavily and for a long time off the field. Yeah,
well, I think that's the thing. You just love the club and you want to just see it do well and progress. And if you think you can help and improve it, you jump on board and do that. And that's basically the reason I do it, I suppose.
Now, Brett, 40 years, mate, that's fantastic. But over those 40 years, have you ever taken a winter holiday anywhere?
No, I can't remember, Ray. No, most likely not.
And is there anyone else down at Ringwood Football Club that's been anywhere near around, 30 years or whatever? Or who comes close to you?
Yeah, the head trainer down there, Ian Barnes, commonly known as Barney, he would have been down there just as long, maybe a tad longer. He might have been down there since about 69, 70. He's a tad older. He played down there and then he got a serious knee injury, which finished his career, and then he went into to training, and he's been head trainer down there for over 30 years. So, yeah, you should grab him one night next year, Ben, and get him in there.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
And the Ringwood Football Club, mate, there was very high expectations for them at the start of the year after the way they finished off last year. Well, what's been your take on the whole season?
Yeah, it has been pretty disappointing because as you say, we had a good year last year, making finals and winning that final against Mitcham, and we went out and secured a good coach and recruited well, so we had high expectations. So, yeah, it's been pretty disappointing. Can't really put a finger on it, but just a lot of the players that had good years last year have just gone through the motions this year. Not so much gone through the motions, but just had ordinary years, and not just one or two, but 6 or 7 of your major players have all had down years all at once.
Do you think that's because maybe the opposition are putting a little bit more effort into those players?
Yeah, that could be part of the reason. Yep.
And the club itself has obviously got a very proud history and tradition, and I think I'm correct in saying the Flying Dutchman, Paul van der Haar, went through the Ringwood Footy Club. I think he won a second division best and fairest at the age of 15. How important is the history and the tradition of your footy club?
Yeah, Ringwood's very important, and Ringwood's got a great history and tradition. I think we won the first EFL or EDFL premiership back in 1961 when I think Ian Ridley, the former Melbourne player, was coaching. But our history's pretty strong. If you look at our honour board down there of ex-players that have gone on and played VFL, AFL football, it's quite high, and Paul van der Haar is obviously probably the most recognised and best player that's gone on and played. But yeah, he was a star. He was when I was in under 13s, he was in about under 17, so he was 3 years older than me. But I remember watching him as a youngster, and then when he played senior football, he was a superstar, and he's the best player, in my opinion, that Ringwood's produced over the years.
Yeah, and as the secretary, you'd obviously be all over the recruitment of players and bringing fresh blood into the club. How important is your relationship with the Ringwood Cricket Club? Obviously, a premier cricket club and the breeding ground for state cricketers. How do you get much from them, and do you take that relationship for granted at all?
Much for them, as in recruiting-wise, or just...
Do you get players from the Ringwood Cricket Club coming to play footy and vice versa? Do you feed off each other like that?
Not over the years, no, that hasn't been the case. Our relationship's fairly strong with the Ringwood Cricket Club. It's been built up over the last few years, and that's fairly strong. But as far as getting players, like a lot of local clubs, Montrose and those, you have a lot of players. I suppose that's where you get in at, that play football and then cricket. That doesn't so much happen at Ringwood. Maybe because it's a district cricket club, but also at the moment there's a few. Well, the King boys were South Croydon and that sort of stuff. So no, that hasn't sort of happened over the years.
Who would be your biggest, one of your biggest rival clubs, or a couple of clubs over the years, Brett, that you've just loved beating on a Saturday afternoon?
Might be coming up against one of them this weekend, I reckon. Mighty Heathmont Jets.
Yeah, Heathmont. Well, that's been built in the last few years. I think from my senior days, which started in 1979, I don't think I actually played senior football against Heathmont, because we were a first division club and they were often in second and third. So we've only sort of started playing them again in senior football the last few years. But that's a rivalry that's fairly big. But going back, East Ringwood was an arch rival back in the late 70s and early 80s, and I remember when first started playing senior football, we would always traditionally play East Ringwood on a Sunday, and both times during the year, and you'd get thousands there, and it was a local derby. It was a big rivalry. It was a bit like Carlton Collingwood, but obviously we haven't played them for quite a few years. But East Ringwood, North Ringwood, obviously because of their closeness to us, but yeah, Heathmont's probably the one in the last few years. And also Mitcham, we have a good rivalry with Mitcham. We're very similar clubs, and we've always got on really well over the years. And it's not so much a bitter rivalry like it was against East Ringwood and North Ringwood, where you really wanted to rub their nose into the ground and beat them. Mitcham, you still want to beat them, but it's a bit more friendly rivalry, if you know what I'm sort of saying. Yeah.
And you've seen the Eastern Football League evolve as well over that time, and we are proud to call ourselves a Premier Division in Australia when it comes to local football. Would you agree with that statement? And has the competition really come along in leaps and bounds over the last, say, 2 decades or so?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you go to the AGM and you go to EFL meetings and well, you just go to any football ground on a Saturday, you can see how well run the clubs are, which is a direct benefit of the EFL. So yeah, look, it's a fantastic competition, and it's always been very strong. And you go and watch first division football and you just see how strong that is.
Absolutely, and the boys are playing for the Ringwood Football Club, Jaden in the 15s and Nathan in the 19s. The 19s are having a pretty good season, aren't they? Yeah,
the 19s are going well, undefeated. Played Brayden on the weekend, who was second on the ladder, and ended up winning, I think it was about 5 or 6 goals, so that was good for them. So they've proved they're the best side in it at the moment, but they've got to prove that come finals, and I hope they really do. They're a great bunch of kids, and they're a good bunch of players, and they've got half a dozen or so of them have got a big, long future with the Ringwood Footy Club down the track.
You've only got one more home game, and of course you will be hosting finals. Is there a function at the Wantirna South game in round 18, or are we washing our hands of all functions for the year until the boys wrap things up?
There will be an end of season function. It won't be anything huge because the reserves, hopefully, if they win this week, they're assured of playing finals. And obviously the 19s will play finals, so we have got a function planned, but it's pretty low key and not as big as it was a few years ago when all 3 sides, or seniors and reserves, weren't in finals. The last function can be quite big for the end of the season, but no, nothing planned as such.
Would you say off the field Ringwood's had a good season? We're not saying that it's been a terrible year on the park, disappointing, but off the park, is the club comfortable where they sit, or are you in a stage of getting to where you want to be?
Off the field, had a few little problems along the way where we had a change of presidency halfway through the year, so that sort of throws things out a little bit. I think that was for the better, though, and I think things have improved since that time. And in fact, I know things have improved, and the committee are very dedicated to staying on board for next year, and already there's a lot of planning and ideas going ahead for that. So I think this time next year we'll be a lot better off the field than we have been in the last year or two.
Exciting times ahead for the Ringwood Football Club, mate. We really appreciate you coming in. We could talk football with you for a good hour, probably even two, but we've got a couple of other guests to chat to. Love the fact that you came in to talk face-to-face with tonight. We've definitely enjoyed that aspect of the program. Good luck with the boys over the next few seasons, especially Nathan in the 19s. That's quite exciting. The reserves as well, and let's hope that the senior side can kick off the last 2 weeks of the season with a victory over a rival in Heathmont on the weekend.
Thanks very much, Ben.